It's not a job. This is my life, and I think it's always been my life, and I love it to the point where it is a definition of me and my life and how I do everything, really.
This is The Crackling. I'm Anthony Huckstep. For many chefs that start to build a career, there is a moment that they find their voice and it ignites something special from within them. For Annita Potter, it was moving to Thailand, and her culinary world was turned on its head. Annita, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Huck, how are you?
I'm good. You've had a bit of a crazy landing back in Australia, and you've taken the culinary scene by storm, winning Chef of the Year. And what's it felt like?
A bit mad, actually. It's kind of like a roller coaster. The good bits and the bad bits and the oh my god bits and the kind of close your eyes and just hope you get through it bits. No, I mean it's slightly overwhelming. I think it's probably the best way of describing it, I suppose.
How different is the culinary landscape here to kind of what you remember sort of many moons ago?
Oh God, I was only a wee thing when I was a part of the industry back then. When I was in Australia, I very male dominated, very kind of who's who. I don't know. I wasn't that experienced, and I wasn't that far into it or deep enough into it to have much of a scope. I just kind of was just set on my own course, I think, and yeah, I wanted more, and so hence leaving to find more. Not that I really knew what that more was or what was on the other side of that coin. Yeah.
You've been back barely, not even a year yet, and what's surprised you about opening a restaurant here, and what have you loved so far? I
don't know, the fact that it's on my terms, that it's exactly what I want to do, whether or not that's the right or wrong thing. The support coming home has been extraordinary. And the award in itself was kind of like a lovely homecoming gift. Not only from the industry, but the customers who come in and are just so receptive of what we're doing here, and kind of seems as if they have been wanting a change of pace and a point of difference, which we certainly offer here. I don't know. It's just nice to be back, nice to be in another place, because I was never here really in the first place. So it's just another story on my adventure list, I suppose.
Tell us a little bit about that point of difference and the offering that you have there that is so unique.
I think it's what I remember a dining experience being when I was younger, or even when I was going out for dinner overseas. That it wasn't just about good food; it was about the whole thing, and kind of experiencing something that I wasn't necessarily getting at home via cooking or what have you, and just that all-encompassing hospitality. So. Brilliant food, lovely wines or cocktails that go with it, but the atmosphere of, sitting in a dining room and everyone is, being looked after, and there is always something to watch or something happening. This rapport that you used to get with staff, albeit, kitchen or floor, the time that they had to give real proper customer service and interact, and you started to form a small relationship with them, and should you have enjoyed that, you would come back and you would basically be greeted as a long lost relative that they hadn't seen for a while, and what have you been up to, and that kind of thing. I missed that. I missed getting dressed up and going out for dinner as if it was an occasion, rather than just slipping on crappy jeans and right, we're going out for dinner. It's like, do you want to make an effort? Do you know what I mean? I missed that, and that's what I loved about going out for dinner, because it was that thing of going out for dinner, so going out for a show or something like that. It was, in my mind, it was the same thing. And things have changed, and it's not just here that it's changed. It's changed all over the world, and I don't know if I'm the only person that misses that experience. And so having a platform to do my own restaurant and create my own rules, it was what it's the restaurant that I remember. Not really all that I remember. There was no very open kitchens quite like this, but just I wanted to eat like that again, and I wanted to bring that back. So
Thailand had such a profound impact on you and the direction that you took your food. Tell us about that period of time just before that, and that transition and move there, and sort of the impact it had on you.
Well, I was cooking European food I started cooking European food. There wasn't that much Asian influence where I grew up in Perth, certainly back then, and so I was a bit naive to that and everything else, and certainly Southeast Asian kind of food and culture and stuff like that. I don't think I was really prepared for it to take me over as quickly as it did. It was quite strong, to the point where I kind of realised this is exactly what I want to do, and this is exactly where I want to go. It felt right, and it felt normal, and it felt like it was not forced, and all of that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot to say about when you feel like that it is right, that it is kind of the right thing to do, and the path to go down.
Were there any moments or instances that you can recall, you can share, of that impact that it had on you, whether it was a dish or a dining experience or a cultural experience? Every day that I went out early in my time in Bangkok and was just eating such unknown food to me, and just kind of like my brain was just going insane. It was, kind of, why is the fish cut in dans with, I'm sucking out the fluid from the spinal cord, and, I'm chomping around these bones, which actually, are cooked well enough for you to actually eat them in their entirety. There was why am I eating dried squid that have been hanging out on basically a semi-clothesline off the back of a bike with, petrol fumes and stuff, but God, it tastes delicious. Just kind of, it was such a flip of a coin, so foreign, that I think there wasn't one particular moment that I was eating something that it kind of was just like, oh my gosh, it was every moment. And also just the way, particularly, I mean, I can only speak more about Thais because I've had more interaction with them. The way that food is their culture. And that, everything is revolved around cooking or preparing it, or, who's coming and that kind of thing. And I mean, it is their life, which there was something about that also resonated with me. What was it like learning Thai techniques and ingredients and the cuisine, given the European background you had? Was it challenging, and is it a different way of looking at food? Obviously the food's quite different, but was there a different approach required?
I suppose so. And, it's very much hands-on, hand-done. There's not a lot of machinery involved in Thai food. It's, I suppose, quite archaic in its cuisine. Yeah, compared to all the things that we're doing now. I mean, I suppose you could say that about all sorts of things. Italian food is quite archaic. Everything's, pasta should be handmade and hand cut and all that kind of stuff. But it was why I wasn't seeing that from the Western food that I was cooking in those professional kitchens. Everything was more about the speed and getting it done, rather than, let's get the best out of it. So, like, for example, hand mincing pork belly, which takes forever, down to where it's supposed to be, whether or not it's supposed to be coarse because you want the texture from it, or it's supposed to be fine because it needs to be cooked down with palm sugar, and it's not all about the pork, but it's about the end dish. Hand pounding pastes that you kind of get halfway through and just wished you had several other arms to swap with. That kind of thing, and realizing that if you did throw it into a food processor or a blender or what have you, that it would just taste flat or smell flat, and the concept of that, even with explaining it, doesn't really kind of make sense unless you're doing it yourself and you're standing over the mortar and pestle and the fragrance that each individual ingredient gives off, and then the end product, not only from a smell and a fragrance point of view, but then a taste and a flavour point of view at the end is extraordinary. So
I remember talking to David Thompson once, and he talked about the fact that there's not really recipes for dishes. Well, there's not really set amounts of ingredients. There's the ingredients, but it's all down, the measurements are missing because you need to work it out as you're cooking. Is that something that you've discovered in Thai cuisine as well?
Yeah, and it's kind of it was his teachings. He does have recipes, and let me tell you, they are pages long and in language that I'm not quite even sure he understands at some points. And I remember him teaching me how he would write his recipes. So just to segue for a minute, I'll come back to what you were talking about. But there was a moment I was like, what does a whisper of galangal powder mean, or an insinuation of pepper? I was like, David, English is my first language, and I'm lucky that I'm well read, so I get most of those wordings. However, you're writing these for Thai people whose their second languages, and he said to me that it was more for his entertainment, because he had to sit there for hours on end and write recipes that he knew people weren't going to follow and or read. So it was more for him. Recipes at the end of the day are a guide, and each person, each cook, each chef, has a different palate. So I always tend to be quite salty. I'm not a sweet person, so even though a recipe says 20 grams of palm sugar, you also have to look at the dish itself, and if for example, I've got a relish of aged pork belly on the menu at the moment. It's from North Thailand in Chiang Mai, and it's marinated down with a whole lot of curry paste and a whole lot of dried spices, but also tomatoes. Depending on the season and depending on the tomato and depending on everything, the tomatoes are sometimes sweeter or sour, more sour than before. So you have to then adjust it according to your produce and stuff like that. So I think that's where, the idea of you have your ingredients, you need to know how to cook them, and you need to know how they work together with them to then have an end product that still works. And it's also the thing. Thai food tells you when to add the next thing, or what to add the next thing and stuff like that. So and it's all by smell or taste, and it's just understanding it, I suppose, which takes a long time to kind of get your head around, because European cooking is certainly the complete opposite, particularly when you start getting into pastries and bakery and stuff like that, where your recipe is on the money or it doesn't work.
Mm. What sort of role does pork play within Thai cuisine? Were there dishes or techniques that you discovered as you were learning your craft there?
Yeah, pork is huge, but the whole pig. Many dishes are cooked with pork fat. Even dishes that doesn't actually have pork in it themselves, pork fat plays a huge part in Thai food. Pork itself, I mean, there are pigs running rampant in Thailand. There aren't that many cows, and cows are used mainly for labour. Poultry also is a big thing. So pork and pigs are the thing. Techniques of doing it. So hand mincing and braising it down for several hours before you cook it. Different ways of cooking a curry with pork, whether or not you're boiling it in a curry that doesn't have any coconut milk in, or you're crispy frying it beforehand and then it goes into something else, or then you're fermenting it for days on end outside in the sun with glutinous rice, which then turns into something completely different. The sausages that most people know, the fermented sausages. That's I had never seen something like that in Western cooking. Mixed pork fat and pork, all kinds of different cuts of pork with a whole lot of sticky rice, salt and some seasonings, and just leave it in the sun for days. It's like, really? Sure, we're not going to kill somebody. And the end product is this beautiful, slightly sour fermented pork that then is either grilled or put into a stir fry or simmered down in a coconut milk. There's the pork repertoire in Thai food is major.
When you came back to Australia, did you make connections with pig farmers? And was the pork different that you were dealing with when you landed back here?
I haven't had the opportunity to speak to many pork farmers. I'm quite city based. I've always been quite city based. Reaching out to people I came across, I was given a contact for who now is basically my only supplier of pork, and it's Marcus down at Whole Beast Butchery. And I would go in and I would talk to him, and I still do now, and say, right, listen, this is the dish I need to do, I want to do. Let's nut out, what pork cut would be best for that and stuff like that. And his knowledge of pork particularly is enormous. And his porks come from, I don't even know if I pronounce this right, the Canawindra. I don't even know where that is because my geography of Australia is so bad. Canowindra, there you go.
Yeah, that's okay. I pronounce it that way too the first time I drove through it.
Don't ask me how to pronounce the beach in Sydney that starts with a C because everyone laughs at me. But yeah, they're beautiful, beautiful Hampshire cross pigs that are really well marbled and juicy and lovely and tender, and the quality of them is beautiful. So he's my kind of point of call rather than pig farmers, and unfortunately I just haven't had time to leave the restaurant since it's begun, or even before it began, because we were basically in COVID and everything was locked down. So yeah.
And you've been pretty busy since, let's be honest.
Yeah, so only a little bit.
You mentioned discussing different pork cuts. Is there some cuts that you go to or really love cooking, and can you tell us about the best techniques for them?
Pork neck, I love. I think it's slightly forgotten. Everyone kind of goes to jowls or cheeks, and there is also, I mean, I don't know, with pork there's also something that you've got to remember. So if you want to put jowls on your menu, there's only 2 jowls in one pig's head, so there's a lot of waste in that, and I think it's also being respectful to the animal. So pork neck facilitates a whole lot of stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, jowls and cheeks are divinely delicious. However, I don't know, neck I think could be one of my favourite. Pork belly, of course, because it's so versatile. I tend to use all the, so pork neck, pork belly, pork shoulder, those big kind of cuts that have most fat, most marbling in it, that you can quickly grill pork neck, marinate it down and then quickly grill it on an oven or a hibachi oven thing or a charcoal grill. So sometimes you don't really need to cook the hell out of it to get a better thing. I mean, pork belly, you can crispy fry it or mince it down and cook it in a curry or a relish or something like that. I don't know. I think pork is one of those very versatile animals to play with.
You mentioned a pork belly dish that's been on the menu recently. Are there a couple of other pork dishes over the last sort of 8 months that you've had on the menu that you can tell us about that have been successful?
I did a curry from also North Thailand, hung lei, which is a boiled curry with lots of curry paste and things like that. No coconut cream, so the pork itself is quite prominent. Pickled garlic, slightly different to what people have probably. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a hung lei recipe or dish on a menu anywhere here or outside of Thailand. Funny we're talking about pork. I've been bought out to do the Festival of the Pig on Thursday,
Oh, really?
which is basically 8 courses of pig.
Wow.
Paired with 8 courses of wine, and it's just going to be. It's basically a festival of pig. So.
Holy moly, that sounds like you need to wear some tracksuit pants that day.
Or certainly take some in your handbag so you can slip into them afterwards. So I'm doing cured pork, like I was saying to you before, fermenting and curing the pork and simmering that down in coconut cream. I've put that dish on the menu before, but I didn't ferment the pork because I just didn't have time. Whereas I've been able to get ahead of myself, strangely, to organise the fermenting of this pork. What else are we doing? God, there's so much pork. So I'm doing grilled pork neck with a tamarind chili dressing, and also just going to smoke some tomatoes and pound them up with some fish sauce that goes really well with it. That I've put on the menu for our industry nights, which is just a little bit kind of quicker, I suppose, and just works with a whole raft of things. And it's usually on as a supplementary if anyone wants to add on to the 4-course menu that we do on our Mondays.
Tell us a little bit about that industry night that you do and what happens. What have they been like?
Oh my God, they're riots. There was this crazy idea of, there's nothing to do on Monday. Why don't we just open and see what happens? And from the first one onwards, they have just gotten bigger, gotten more rowdy. I mean, people. So it's 4-course and it's BYO wine. And so if you and I were coming in for dinner, we've got the opportunity of bringing 2 bottles of wine in. People have kind of taken that and run it to somewhere I really didn't think was ever going to happen. So they bring in their caravans with a couple of different bottles and explain that they're only having a couple of glasses with these courses, and then so I mean that's fine. And then they always give me a glass. Every table pours a glass and puts it on my pass and says, "Chef, you need to try this. You need to then try this." I had a group of 8 people who, so they had 8 bottles of wine, extraordinary things, that decided that because they were so extraordinary, they needed to bring their own glassware in, which was fine. So I was like, okay. There are moments where people bring magnums in, and yes, it's technically a bottle, but it's like, really? No, it's fun. It's really fun. The only problem is that there are 2 sittings. One's at 6 and one's at 7:45, and the people who come at the early sitting at 6 o'clock really don't want to leave, and I really don't want them to leave. However, I need to get them off the tables to then put the other people in. The music's louder. The courses are smaller, so it's 4-course, and then there's a couple of supplementaries that people can take or not take. They're fun. They're mental. They're absolutely mental, and they're absolutely fun. Our last one, we did over 60 people in our very small restaurant, which was just, again, another crazy riot. And then I decided that I should open February's, which is already basically three quarters full. So it seems like it has kind of taken off. It's brilliant, but yeah, I didn't quite think it was going to work quite so quickly.
I want to talk a little bit about your food and your approach to cookery. With that European background and foundation, and then that discovery and exploration of Thailand, do you lean back into the older techniques at times, or is there a mixing of them at all as you create dishes?
Yeah, of course. And, when you're also faced with a restaurant full of people and limited staff, or staff who call up and they're sick, you really can't at some point things need to be expedited. So, the all of the spices that we dry out and then hand pound just to get the freshness out of them, they are then dried out, all that kind of stuff. But then we quickly whiz them in a spice grinder, which is fine. I mean, the only person who's going to probably notice that is me or David. And he's not here, so that's fine. It's kind of expediting some things that you just don't have time for. I try and do everything to as true as I can, even though it kind of lets me kind of wake up at 9 o'clock and I'm in the kitchen by 10, and we don't actually open till 6:30, so I can kind of still do all of that work, I suppose. I don't know. There are some things, but I try and hand mincing of everything. And I also don't have any equipment to I don't have a mincer. I don't have any of that. So, it's I've made my bed, and this is just what's happening.
You've mentioned David Thompson a couple of times, an absolute legend and a real larrikin as well. Do you have any stories of the influence that he had on you? You spent quite a bit of time with him.
Yeah, I have, and I still do. I mean, we still speak on the phone, on a weekly basis. I don't know. There's we're talking stories over the better part of 12 years.
Well, what is it about him that and his approach to Thai cookery that makes him so gifted?
He's intelligent, for one thing. Being able to not only teach himself Thai language, but also the capacity to read it and then translate it. I mean, the recipes and things that he has worked on from very, very old books. As a Westerner, you don't have that within your grasp. But I think he approaches things well. I think I approach things similar to how he approached things, and just he wanted to learn this. This is what he was doing, and that's what he did. He doesn't have any he just, what's the word I'm looking for? Doesn't compromise with anything. And, I suppose that some people think that that's sometimes a bad thing, but, particularly with Thai food, he wanted to show people, this is from my side, how brilliant the food was, and, all the different layers and the techniques and all that kind of stuff, and was able to do it, and obviously get all of the accolades that he's so rightly deserved.
Well, you're now receiving some pretty incredible accolades as well, and making quite an impact since coming back to Australia. What do you love about what you do?
I don't know. It just feels right. This is it's not a job. This is my life, and I think it's always been my life, and I love it. So, to the point where it is a definition of me and my life, and how I do everything, really. I just want to cook at the end of the day. I'm just a cook, and if I make people happy with my food, or inspire people to perhaps take the same path, or just even to home cook, then my job is done. And also to just give people the experience of dining in a different kind of way, then that's kind of me happy.
Well, I think I haven't had a chance to dine at your restaurant yet, but I think I need to come on hospo night by the sound of things.
It's probably the best night to come. And, people swap wines with each tables, and, kind of walk past to go to the bathroom, and then they realise that someone's drinking that. So then they double back to their table and grab their bottle and say, listen, I've just seen you're drinking, I don't know, whatever, can I have a glass? And this is what I'm drinking, so would you like to have a glass? And so it's just this kind of lovely kind of mingling, sharing. So it is one of the best nights to come on, I think.
Well, you've created such an amazing venue there, and it's an absolute honour to have you on the Crackling today to hear a little bit of your story. Anita, please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
I shall. Have a nice break if you're able to get one.
This is the Crackling, a Deep in the Weeds production in partnership with PorkStar. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we catch up with some of Australia's best chefs and pork producers to discover what makes Australian pork so special.